3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to the Rubber Duck Dev Show. I'm Creston.
And I'm Chris.
And today we're going to talk about failing in public, which we just did.
Yep. I started the show. Yeah, I did that on purpose. We'll go with that.
And Chris contacted me and said, hey, for this episode, you should take the lead on it. So following the adage of failing in public, I've done nearly zero preparation for this show. So we'll see how it goes. But before we get into the actual show content, what'd you do this week?
It's been a headless chicken week. I've been running all over the place, in virtual space, trying to get things all straightened out for a bunch of different customers, and we're having to do a bit of a reversion on something that didn't pan out right. It panned out okay in all the testing, but then you put something in production and you find out about all the things that don't yeah. Production is never the same as your staging environment, even if it's exactly the same, because customers find ways to do things that you never think about. So we're having to do a little patchy business, but that's just what happens with production stuff. So, and lots of little nitnoids going on this week. Just little bug stompers and things like that. Adding a couple little tests that we were missing. Just all kinds of little things. So, how have you been?
Been good. Been really busy. I have another win that happened. Actually, it may have happened like right last week as the show concluded, but we didn't do an intro then, so I'll just mention it now. Like, I had a client come to me for a database or SQL optimization. So they had this long query that they basically said, hey, we need to try and speed this query up. And it was basically trying to deliver JSON. So I'm thinking, okay, so I worked with them on it. And they showed me the query, and literally it joined 11 tables and put a whole bunch of information in it and delivered a JSON document.
Yikes.
And I'm like, oh boy, that's a lot. Or no, it was even more than 11. It may have been 13 or something. I don't know. It was a lot. Because normally when I'm optimizing a query, maybe it's 3 tables, 4 tables at the most. But this one I was kind of like, okay. So I took a look at it, and to pull back, and what it was doing was pulling like a parent record and then all sorts of different children downstream from it. So that's why I was joining all these tables to pull back all this information into one big, huge JSON file.
Mm-hmm.
So pulling one of the problematic records took 1 second. So to run that SQL query took 1 second to deliver all that JSON. And they said they were able to get it using, I think, Ruby on Rails. They were able to get it down to maybe 300 seconds by breaking it up and doing it iteratively in Ruby.
I assume you meant 300 milliseconds.
That's what I meant. 300 milliseconds. So a little faster.
Yeah.
So I knew it was like, okay, there's some win here that I need to figure out. But for the life of me, I kept failing. I couldn't figure out how to, I found some quick wins to get it down to by 20% faster, 25% faster, but it just wasn't what I was looking for. Finally, I cracked the nut and figured it out and basically broke it down into its component parts, doing subqueries. So basically, not pulling all the data at once in this big, huge join and then aggregating it all together to JSON, but actually creating the JSON segments within subqueries for each table and then joining all of those together. And by doing that, that one problematic record then became 100 times faster. So it went from 1 second to 10 milliseconds.
Mm.
And 100 records, which is kind of what their goal was, went from, it took about 10 seconds to do it. And then after the optimization, it took like 200 milliseconds, so about 50 times faster. So I was like, oh my gosh, finally I figured that out.
Wow. Yeah,
But I mean,
databases.
I'll take a 100x win, but yeah.
Well, yeah,
So
100x win is pretty good. That's nothing wrong with that.
yeah, so but today we are talking about failing, and specifically failing in public.
Yep.
And oh, hey Lucien,
Hey
thanks
man,
for joining us.
how you doing?
Um, so this was an episode you came to me and said, "Hey, I want to do this, and you can interview me." So, what kind of tickled your fancy in terms of wanting to discuss this particular topic?
So first, I just want to say, I'm happy to be here. I was really surprised to get the invite, and really feel good about being here. So, thanks for
You're
that. But
honored.
yeah, I'm honored to be here. Um, no, it's well, one of the things that I have for a while, kind of had in the back of my head is uh, that I want to do with this show and with coding with Chris is to help junior developers come up, right? And part of that is not being afraid to fail, right? And building that confidence to just say, I'm going to try this thing, and if it doesn't work, that's fine, you know, but I'm going to try it anyway. And I think, when I kind of almost remember when I was starting out 100 years ago, it was intimidating. I mean, programming, development, software engineering is a huge landscape, and it's hard to navigate, and it's hard to figure out your way, and there's so much going on. And having that lack of confidence as a new developer can really hamper you. And I think one of the better...
Out of curiosity, what was intimidating? Or what did you find intimidating when you started out?
Well, I was coming into a job where there were senior engineers, and I'm like, oh, I don't want them to think I'm a complete idiot, because I don't know how to do
you don't
this
want to think
thing,
yeah.
and then, I have to learn all this, navigating this huge environment of stuff. It's just, it's just intimidating. And as we started this show, one of the things I started thinking about, I mean, not today's show, but this channel, one of the things I was thinking about is, what would I have liked to have had available to me when I was starting as a developer? And I don't think that changes, from 25 years ago when I was starting. Those same needs and wants are there. You can just get them different ways. Like, we didn't have YouTube and stuff when I was a junior, but we had meetups, and people would meet and talk about stuff and learn from each other. And it's the same kind of thing, I think. So one of the things that I wanted to do to talk today specifically is, I think it's important for senior developers to be able to fail in public, so that junior developers can see, oh, look, they screw things up too, and it's fine. That's just part of the process. So I can go in here and try things and screw things up, and it's okay, because it's just part of the process. So that's one of the big reasons. There are several reasons that I like to do this live, but one of the big ones is because I want people to see this is us,
The unpolished version
right.
of us.
Yeah, I mean, there's no editing, there's no scripting, there's none of that stuff. We'll come in here, we'll stumble over words, we'll forget English, I go on coding with Chris and look like a complete idiot a lot of the time, but it's fine because we're learning things. And so,
Yep.
when we fail in public, but one of the things that I've heard from several junior developers that I've talked to lately is that watch the show is, yeah, it was really nice to see you messing things up, because it made me feel better about when I mess things up, right? Especially at work. Messing things up when your little funsies project at home isn't a big deal. You expect to do that, but messing things up at work, you, as a junior, that's pretty intimidating, I think. So, it's something that I'm starting to want to do more of, is encourage more senior developers to start doing live coding, so that the community of junior developers can see that and start learning things and start learning how the thinking process works and how you learn new stuff. So I think it's important.
Now you're going to try to convince me to do this as well. And I've been thinking about that. I should probably do something, but I've been so busy.
I know
that it's trying to fit it in, or figure out how to fit it in. But yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about, what I can do as well. So
right. Well, and then it's a thing like coming up with the coding with Chris. I had to find a project that I could do in public, because I can't do my actual work in public live, right? The NDAs and stuff. But so that is a bit of a challenge. But I think it's just, hey, go out and do a funsies project, and you don't have to put your face on the camera. You can just get a mic and show your screen if it's too intimidating at first to put your face on camera, which I know for people doing live stuff, that's the biggest hurdle, is getting in front of a camera. I mean, I've never talked to anybody who's gotten into live stuff that didn't say, my biggest problem, my biggest hurdle was just getting in front of the camera the first time. That's always been the answer. And I think,
yeah, I remember my first time when I did a webinar, I was just staring blank. There was no other guest there. It was just me giving a presentation, and I'm staring blankly into this black circle that is the camera, trying to, and just talking to it in a silent room was just eerie. And you don't get any feedback from another person. Like, you don't hear another sound.
Yeah.
You're like, I hope this is going out there. I don't know if it's working.
Right.
So I went from there and being very uncomfortable to, like, I turn it on. It's like, hey, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think it just takes practice, and it takes practice to fail in public too, because you have to be comfortable with your abilities. And you have to be comfortable with yourself to get in front of other people and say, okay, I'm just going to figure out how this works and learn it right in front of you. Let's do it. It turns out, though, that for me and for a lot of other people, I would suspect, that's really cathartic. To just get on there with chat and say, okay, I'm screwing this up. And somebody in chat will say, oh, hey, did you try this? Great. We learned something. It's also fun, because I'm having a lot of people. I'm having more people approach me through that, because they're watching me screw up and say, hey, he's the same human I am. He's not some magical thing on a video. He's just a dude over here programming, right? And it's much more approachable that way, I think. So I'm wondering what more I can do to get more people to get into live coding. I took a poll on Twitter a couple weeks back and asked people, if you had a free place to learn how to do live coding, to learn the technology and how to do it and all that stuff, would you consider doing it, or you're never going to do it at all? What I was expecting was maybe, like 15 or 20% of the responses to be, yeah, I'd give it a shot. And the rest of them, like, there's not a chance I'm ever stepping in front of a camera. it turns out that what it was about 60% of people saying, yeah, I'd like to try that, which really surprised me. So one of the things I think I'm going to do to see if I can help that out is we've got a Discord channel, and I'm going to see if I can set up a time where I can just hang out in the Discord chat for like an hour a week and let people come in and just ask questions about streaming. How do I do this? How do I set this up in OBS? What kind of microphone should I use? All that fun stuff that I've had to learn over years and years. See if we can shortcut that knowledge so that people can get into the live streaming. So chat, I mean, if you're not part of our Discord yet, go ahead and join, because I'll be putting up there pretty soon some times when I'll be hanging out in the Discord chat and talking about this stuff to try to help you out, because I'm not quite sure what else I can do, but I could do that for sure. But I think it's an important thing to try to put yourself out there. It's important for the community to see people doing that, I think. So,
yeah, I think, you're saying trying to decide what to do. I mean, I think anyone who has contributed to an open source project, that's definitely a fair game
thing. Oh, absolutely.
To be able to put up there. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something new, or I mean, you could choose your favorite library and see, hey, is there any feature you want added to it, or something like that.
I'm going to work on a PR today for this gem that I use. Yeah, it doesn't have to be some big project. I'm doing a big project, but that's because that's what I wanted to do. This whole Ruby game programming thing, that's a whole different arena. And one of the reasons I picked that is because I wanted to start using my Ruby brain a different way from a Rails app. But it doesn't have to be that. I mean, if you're live streaming coding, you could just be, hey, I want to investigate, the new things in Ruby 3.1 today and do some hacking in IRB just to see what happens. Or I want to do this PR for OSS. This is our goal today, is to get this PR done for this feature, or fix this bug, or one of the things that I'm going to do that's fun too, I think is going to be fun. And this came from Marco. On Tuesday on the Coding with Chris, I'm going to try doing, what's this thing called? It's called Clash of Code. Yeah, Clash of Code. Because Tuesday is my birthday, and we're going to just celebrate online. And I thought, instead of just watching me code, why don't we get together and all do something together? So we're going to try this Clash of Code thing, which lets anybody, it's like little coding challenges, and you do them in whatever language, and we're just going to have fun together. So it doesn't have to be any hugely structured thing. It's just about getting yourself out there and having some fun with it, and not being afraid to just be in public with it. And I think one of the really important things to understand, I titled this show Failing in Public, but one of the mantras I've had for a very, very long time is, you only fail if you fail to learn. So even if you get something wrong, if you learn something from it, you haven't failed. So I'm not really failing in public, I'm learning in public, right? I hope. So, which I think, I mean, for me at least, that makes it a little less intimidating. Everybody has to learn stuff. I'm learning in public. Yep, part of learning is screwing things up sometimes. That just means I'm learning faster. So that's okay.
I wonder, because when you said this episode, Failing in, Lucian said, that is so well said.
Oh, thanks, man.
There you go. So when you had said this episode, Failing in Public, I was kind of taking from the new developer perspective and trying to think, what are they intimidated? What are they fearful of? And part of me is wondering, is our structured education system teaching people to be super afraid of failing? Because, you have to learn a defined thing and then you take a test on it. And there is, most of the time, especially with math and science and things of that nature, a right and a wrong answer. And therefore, getting things wrong is a bad thing. You get a bad grade, maybe your parents aren't happy. Oh, you don't get to go to your college of interest if that's what you're wanting to do. Whereas there's other things where the faster you fail, you end up eventually succeeding. Like if you're programming
Yep.
something, you may hit the wall, hit the wall, hit the wall, hit the wall. Finally, you break through the wall, figuring out what it is you need to do.
Right. Yeah, Rebuilt. How's it going, man? Welcome. One of the things that helped me get over my imposter syndrome was to see that senior devs don't actually know everything. Amen, brother. And I only learned that by pairing with seniors. Right. Yeah, pairing is a great way to do that. And I don't have a lot of time for one-on-one pairing. So what I'm hoping and what I'm seeing is that, doing live coding stuff is kind of group pairing, but I get to put my stuff out there, and people who watch me know that I'm a senior developer. I've been doing this for a long time, and they can sit there and watch me screw things up and have to ask chat, somebody tell me how to do this. I have no clue, and I do that all the time. And I have no problems with that. Because I want juniors to go in there confident and say, you know what, I'm just as good as the seniors. I just don't have as much experience as them. So, of course they're going to know some things that I don't know yet because they've spent 20 years learning, but they still screw it up and they still learn new things. So it's okay for me to get in there and try and learn and mess things up. Another mantra I've had for a long time is, if you aren't breaking something, you're not trying hard enough. You probably ought to do a little bit better job at your job if you're not breaking things.
You sound like what's his name? Facebook dude. See, my brain's left me. The founder of Facebook. Didn't he say something like move fast and break things?
Yeah, yeah. Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I completely agree, Rebuilt. That's important. One of the other things that an example that comes to mind, and something that I'm hoping to help juniors get past, is a lot of interviews that you go on for software engineering. They'll get you, like the manager, the interviewing manager will get you on a call or in a room and say, okay, here's a coding problem, code it in front of me. And that is intimidating as hell. And I'll tell you, I did that. I had to take those tests when I was looking for a job in the middle of my career. And even at that point, I was a senior developer at that point. That was still intimidating, having somebody looking over your shoulder. And I was like, I don't ever want to feel like that again. So I want to go do this on a consistent basis where I'm in front of people coding new things, so that I'm comfortable with that, because I didn't like the feeling of, oh my God, somebody's looking over my shoulder. I better get this all perfect and right, or I'm not going to get this job. That is not how it goes. So be comfortable with it. So if you're not a senior developer, or you're not, and junior developers, I think would benefit greatly from live coding and just getting out there and getting comfortable with that kind of stuff. I know it's intimidating, but it's really not that bad. but if you're not one that will do the live coding, I would highly recommend that you go watch people live code, because there are people on Twitch and YouTube that do live coding, and a lot more than me. I didn't come up with this. Great positioning for convincing people to do live coding. In what way? What's convincing you, man? Like, Lucian, you've done a few live things now, not live coding that I'm aware of, but some interviews. You've been on this show, you've been on Seb's show, you've done a couple of things live. What's different about that than recorded stuff? I mean, do you have any advice for people who want to try live coding, and what things that they should think about, maybe? Or anybody else in chat for that matter. But I would highly recommend, Twitch. There are quite a few Ruby programmers. If you're into Ruby, I mean, all the languages are out there. I typically look for Ruby programmers because that's the language I like. But, oh yeah, making it more comfortable in interviews. It did that for me. I realized after I had that, and this has just been a few years ago when I was looking for the job. When I was doing the job hunting where I got this job, that happened to me. And, this is 20 some years of programming under my belt, and I still was intimidated, and I didn't like that feeling. So I said, okay, I'm just gonna, get in front of my fear here and constantly do this in public. So if I'm ever faced with a situation like that again, but that's something that juniors, this is not just so you can show off your coding skills. This is so you can develop coding skills that will make it better for you to get a job. Not only that, but if you're live coding and you've got this stuff up on the web and you're going to look for a job, you can say, hey, look, you can go watch me code, watch my thinking process. I've got a whole portfolio of videos that you could watch and see exactly how I work. Because I know right now I'm hearing a lot of things about juniors having a hard time finding jobs, and lots of people are looking, after all the layoffs and stuff, it's a tough market. And so having ways to sell yourself and show potential employers, look, this is me, no surprises. Here I am. You get to see exactly what I'm doing. And it makes you more comfortable with that kind of stuff. So, I highly recommend trying some live coding. Just give it a shot. Worst that can happen is you don't like it and decide not to do it anymore. But, all you need is a webcam and a headset mic, which you probably already have anyway. Doesn't take tons of equipment.
And a dream.
And a dream. And like I said, join our Discord if you want to. I'm happy to take questions and talk to people about it. Lucian, what is different now after a couple of live shows? It's easier after each one. Exactly. I mean, I'm still not 100% comfortable in front of a camera, and I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, your first one, if you're going to try this, your first one, you're going to be petrified, or it's going to be a disaster. But, just keep going, and it'll just keep getting better if you're going to try this.
Right. And I think,
and I say this not live coding, but I say it doing live shows, doing recorded content in general, where I'm showing my mug and speaking to a mic.
Yeah, it's anytime you get in front of a camera, it's just not comfortable. But I think it's, as I said earlier, that's usually the biggest hurdle. And I'll offer this up too. If you get on the Discord and we're talking about live streaming and you want to try a live stream, let's work out a time. I'll get on there with you, and because it's always easier to have somebody on there with you to talk to, so that you don't feel like you're talking to nobody, because that's really hard to do, especially for most programmers who are fairly introverted. Just talking to nobody is not a skill that you really come to the table with most of the time. You know, you have to learn that. So it's easier to get started if you have somebody with you. And I'll do that. I'll come on and be your wingman if we can work out a time. Because I love this stuff and I want to see more people doing it. So, what things are you thinking about live coding?
Yeah. So is this for me?
You or chat?
Okay.
The main fear, Lucian said, man, I'm having a hard time. My southern drawl can't pronounce that name the way you did, man. I'm trying, but Lucian. I think the main fear for me regarding a live show is a combination of not having time to think, rethink, combined with the feeling that it will remain written in stone. That's a good point. And that I think is one of the biggest things. Time, you know, you feel like you're under pressure to get it done. I was feeling that when I started coding with Chris. And what I've realized is if I need to sit there and think for 10 minutes about a problem, I'll sit there and think for 10 minutes about a problem. Or I'll start talking to chat and just having a conversation about something else so that my brain can percolate a little bit. But yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I mean, because
you feel like you want to say, like you want to show everybody, I know how to solve this problem. Here we go. But that's not really the point.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times the best solutions I come up with is I hit a problem. I do try to break through the wall the first couple of times, but sometimes I'm just like, I'm just going to step away. I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to, oh, it's time to make dinner or whatever. And then like I'm sitting down and then suddenly I'm like, oh, I could try this. Or, or you're in the shower and you come up with those solutions on the fly. So, I mean, when you're live coding, I think you're probably going to have to take that into account. You can't just come up with the best solution right then and there. It may, maybe you say, I'm going to table this. This is an implementation that works. Maybe I'll make it better later.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe on your next stream, maybe you'll have an idea to apply towards it.
Yep. And I've done that
I think
several
trying
times.
to get the best solution immediately, don't think it's going to come because it doesn't, well, at least it doesn't come in the real world for me either. So,
yeah. And, what I'm starting to understand about the coding with Chris, it's different than this. This is a show. This is a talk show. We're here to pass knowledge, to entertain, to be a little more professional than I'm trying to be with coding with Chris, right? But still be real. I don't want hyper polished scripted stuff. But this is different than the live coding stuff I'm doing. And it was weird kind of taking the mindset of what we're doing here and changing that for the live coding, because I'm not trying really to teach over there. I'm just trying to share my process over there. So it's kind of a different mindset, and it is a little intimidating still for me if I get stuck on a problem on live chat. Is that I can sit there and just say, well, I have no idea. Let's move on to something else, and just be fluid and change the plans as we go. Like here, we have a topic that we're trying to talk about. I started doing that with coding with Chris and trying to say, okay, today we're going to work on this thing. And I still do that. I'll put a title up and I'll start there. But if I get stuck, I'm just like, okay, well, we're going to go work on something else then. Or, hey, here's this thing related to this, and I'm more interested in this right now, so I'm going to go work on this thing. And it's fine.
Get the ball.
Right.
Get the shiny ball.
Squirrel. But, and that's fine, because that type of thing, the live coding, and I think the sense I get from chat is that they actually are enjoying that, because they can take things in a different direction too. Chat can say, hey, what about this? What can we go look at this thing? Sure. It's just like pair programming. There's no agenda there. It's just, I want to code some things. and I'm just going to do it with a camera on me. So, so people can share, and maybe I can get some help. And I get a lot of help with chat because I have absolutely no clue what I'm doing with the game programming stuff. So chat's in there helping me all the time. So Lucian says, one thing that works against people wanting to do live coding in Ruby, I somehow got the feeling that we raised the bar very high. What I mean by this, we expect too much quality. We have our own guidelines built on top of Ruby, and we expect them from other people. I think, okay, I think I agree with you. I also think that that has a lot more to do with that's more prevalent in the Rails environment than in the Ruby environment itself. Because Rails has all these, and I'm not trying to knock, I like Rails. I'm not trying to knock it. I'm just saying it has a different perception of this is how things should be, and you should know how to do this way. When I got out of that paradigm and went over to the Dragon Ruby and the Ruby game programming, I didn't have Rails to worry about. It was just Ruby. Actually, mRuby, which is even more different. It kind of freed me from that, because as I'm looking around, Dragon Ruby's fairly new, comparatively speaking, to Rails. So there's not that bar that, hey, you should know how to do this in Dragon Ruby because Dragon Ruby's everywhere, right? It's not the same as Rails. So people are in here, like I'm constantly in the Dragon Ruby Discord because people are asking fairly basic questions about Ruby because they're not Ruby developers. They're game developers trying Ruby out, right? And I'm a Rails developer trying Dragon Ruby out. And so it's this thing where we don't have to feel so Ruby smart because there isn't a bar there yet. So if you're afraid of, if you're thinking the bar is too high, which, being a senior developer who's been doing this for a long time, I will tell you that I am still amazed constantly by things I see junior developers doing because they're thinking in a different way, right? So from my point of view, there is no bar here. It's, I do things the way I've learned to do them. You've got a new way of doing things that's probably better than mine. But I hear what you're saying, Lucian. I think that you're right, that that's intimidating because you sit here and look at things as a junior, you sit and look at things and say, I can't be that good. I don't know all that stuff. So I can't do it. Right. But you can. So here's a short recommendation for people who want to stream. He says, try Hanami 2, maybe. Very good. I mean, yeah. Go look at, just change the framework. I'm not saying that you should become a Hanami master or a Dragon Ruby master or forget Rails, but play with something else just to get your brain working a little differently and to see that Ruby and Rails are not the same thing, right?
Yeah, I think that's, it's in the name Rails. You are put on a constricted path.
Right.
And if you deviate it, it's called going off the rails. And that's, you shy away from that. Whereas if you look at the Ruby language, I mean, you could build whatever you want with it,
Right.
in your own way. And people make their own frameworks as you get to, there's Hanami right here. So yeah,
exactly.
One thing that when I started doing, I actually started, was it a decade ago or whatever, I did a little bit of game programming using Unity, and I had to learn some, was it C#? And having that exposure changed the way I thought about things and building things. It was much more freeing than, following the Rails path.
Yep.
But you can have your own freedom as well. It's just a lot of people kind of get stuck. I don't know if it's stuck in a rut or whatever, but stuck on the rails.
Well, that's specifically what it was for me. One of the reasons I wanted to try Dragon Ruby was I love Ruby, but I want to do something that's not Rails SaaS app stuff. I want to do something
Yeah.
completely different. So Rebuilt says, I think the Ruby Rails divide you're talking about has a lot to do with the junior senior divide. Rails has a lot of senior developers. It does. And that's not to say that it's hard to get into Rails. It's actually easy to get into Rails. It's hard to get into a Rails job, I think, right now. So I mean, I would, if you're on the job hunting trail, I would focus more on learning Ruby in different environments than Rails. I mean, learn Rails, but learn Hanami. Go play with Dragon Ruby. Go watch live coding of different people doing different things with Ruby, because it'll expose you to a lot of stuff. I'm actually learning some things in Dragon Ruby that I never thought about before, and I'm bringing them into work because they're good ideas that Rails programmers don't think that way. Even senior, really good Rails engineers don't think that way. Hey, Colin, what's happening?
Howdy.
So, yeah, I mean, get out there and try different environments with Ruby or whichever language you're using. Like .NET. You can use .NET to do Unity programming.
Lucian said, Eve as a senior, I wrote some silly articles exploring some ideas about how to use new features in Ruby. I expected a pushback in a discussion, but the level of criticism was to the roof.
Wow.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, and see, that's
get off my lawn.
Yeah, that's not okay. I'm happy to say I've never experienced that in the Ruby community or the Rails community. But maybe I've just gotten lucky. But so far, people are very receptive to new ideas. They may not use them, but generally they'll listen. Of course, maybe that's my experience has something to do with my personality of I really don't give a crap what you think about me, so I'm just going to tell you what I think and use it or not. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this. I think if I'm going to do live coding, maybe I won't use Ruby. Maybe I'll actually do some Elixir or use the Phoenix web framework.
Yeah, do something different.
Because here's the thing, I don't do a lot. I've never done any consulting with that. I do consulting with Ruby and Rails and of course the database consulting, and I do have a small app that does one part that's in Phoenix and Elixir, of course, but I don't get a lot of practice with that. So maybe live coding something with that would be help keep me in the frame of mind, because that's another thing. It allows me to think differently, because again, this is not object-oriented programming, it's procedural programming basically. So you don't use loops, you don't use the conditionals are different and things of that nature.
Yeah. Well, and that's something I quickly found out, because when I started coding with Chris, I started with a SaaS app in Rails. And after a few episodes, I quickly discovered that this just feels like work. This is what I do all day. I don't want to do this for fun. So that's why I switched gears and said, I want to do something that I don't do all day at work, right? So that I can look forward to this and have fun with it and explore new things. And it's not just the same old crap I'm doing 8 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, day in, day out. So, I would say if you want to try live coding and you're okay with learning how to fail in public, and I think that's a good skill to have. It's a skill. It needs to be developed, and this is a good way to do it. If you're going to do that, don't live code the stuff you do all day, every day. you'll get bored with it. It'll just feel
Sure,
like
burned
work.
out.
Yeah. And then you won't want to go back to work. You won't want to do your live coding. You won't want to ever see that stuff again because you're just constantly in it. Do something different. So Lucien says, still Ruby is a great community. I learned a lot from these interactions still. And I want to say in the end, I'm grateful that people took the time to give feedback, even if that was a critique. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I don't mind people saying, hey, here's what I think about your idea. Here's a different idea that I have. Here's a different thought that I have. Honestly, I think the best ideas come in the middle of people's opposing viewpoints. I see it as people care very much, and out of the care they want to correct or teach or give that feedback. Yep. And you really like that I chose Dragon Ruby. Good. I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm really enjoying it. It's fantastic. And the community there, if it's something anybody's thinking about getting into, I would highly recommend their Discord. They're a fun bunch of folks. Rebuilt says, every year I learn a new language. On my off hours, I just can't program more Ruby. I need something different. Absolutely. That's absolutely how I feel. I mean, I'm okay with doing more Ruby, but
out of curiosity, Rebuilt, if you're still there, what are some of the recent languages you've learned? Out of curiosity.
Yeah, I know a big one is that a lot of people have been learning lately is Rust. I haven't looked into it, but yep, there you go. Rust.
The year of Rust.
Yep. Because I know Primogen is really into Rust, and yeah, Lua. So I know Lua is a scripting language that I haven't ever done Lua, but it's used for a lot of modding of games and stuff. So I know that's a big thing in the modding community. I don't think it is as much anymore as it was, but it's still used quite a lot. But yeah, I mean, learning new stuff and getting out there and doing something different. I actually prefer when I go and watch somebody live coding, I prefer seeing them learning new things that they don't already know. I'm not going there to watch somebody who's, super senior at this particular thing and can just do it by rote. That's no fun to watch. I want to see people screw up. I want to see them fail in public and then see how they figure out how to learn that stuff. So, I would say go fail in public.
I think the other disadvantage of that, if you're super senior and you're doing what you know, and you know everything that you're going to be doing, maybe you're going to be moving too fast for people to keep up.
Right. Like,
so
Primogen is really entertaining. I like watching him.
But I have no idea I
have no idea what the hell he's programming because he flies around so fast. I have no idea what he's doing. Lucian says, that's a great perspective to watch someone learn something new and learn from that process. I like that too. And not only about programming, but about a wide range of topics. Yeah, exactly. It's learning how to learn, seeing how other people learn, incorporating some of that stuff. And what's really good is everybody learns a different way and everybody has something valuable to show. So if you go and do some live streaming or some coding in some kind of public scenario, that live streaming doesn't have to be it, but this whole failing in public, actually, I think we should change the title of this to learning in public.
Yeah,
because that's really what it is.
I thought of that before you actually said it. I was like, learning in public may be more appropriate.
Right. And I thought about that as the title of this, but I specifically made it failing in public because I wanted to make that point during the show, is that it's not really failing. It's learning. And, I've told my kids several times over their school careers that school isn't really about what you learn. It's about learning how to learn. That's the important part, because when you get into a job, most of the stuff you learned in school is going to evaporate. What you really want to hang on to is
and it's
how
not
to
going to
figure
apply.
right. What you want to hang on to is how to figure out things, right? Learning how to learn. And I think that's one of the great benefits of people who will go out and learn in public, is because they can show people their process and show people, well, this is how I figure things out, because that'll help people, right? So I one of the things I want to try to do is make it so that people will go into a failing in public scenario with the mindset of, I'm not trying to look like the best programmer. I'm trying to share with people how I learn new things. And, you know, that'll translate, I think, into when I go into a job interview and they say, code this in front of me, what they're trying to see is, how do I figure things out? Not, I know all the answers off the top of my head, right? So yeah, I think I would love to see more of this in the community, more live coding, more learning in public type of thing, because I think it's going to help the next generation of developers feel confident that, you know, senior developers aren't some magical beast up there with a unicorn horn and a magic wand. All of us are learning all the time, and that's a good thing. And don't be afraid of that.
That's an especially important point to say, is that all of us are learning all the time. You have to, because I mean, all the languages that Rebuilt mentioned, Elixir, Lua, Rust, I mean, were those around 10 years ago?
Nope. Well, Lua may have been, but
Lua may have been, but you know, things move so fast.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, if you want to stay current, you, in this type of profession, you have to be constantly learning.
Right.
So that is the skill that will pay more dividends than anything else.
Right. And the specific technical stuff I learned 20 years ago doesn't really matter anymore. But the learning how to figure that stuff out I learned 20 years ago, that still matters. So learning how to learn is constantly a good thing. And if I can help people do that more in the community, out in public, I think that's going to be a good thing. So if you haven't joined our Discord, please do so. I'll be putting up there and on Twitter too, some times when I'll be hanging out and just talking to people about how to live code and what they need, the technologies, the equipment, the mindsets, tips and tricks, or ticks and trips, if that's what you want to talk about. I don't know. See, failing in public, just there you go. Yeah, Colin says seeing how others work and think through issues is invaluable. Right. That's why I want to go watch people live code. That's when I go to watch it, that's what I'm looking for. I don't really care what they're coding, honestly. Like I don't care what they're actually working on. I want to see how they're thinking through the problems. And so that's what I'm hoping that people come watch me do it for, is not only to hang out and have fun, but to see how I'm working through the problems and learn how to learn. So, you know, if you guys just keep a watch out on the Discord and Twitter, and I'll make an announcement as soon as I figure out a time for that. And I'll start with maybe an hour a week where we can just hang out on the Discord chat and talk through questions you have if you want to get into this, and how to resolve these things, because I really do want to see more of that in the community. Rebuilt says, when I watch, I'm looking for how they debug, what their workflow looks like, what tools they're using. Exactly. I love that stuff. I love the tool chains and how they process the problem, because I learn something every time I see somebody different doing that. because they have a different way of thinking. And it helps me. So, oh my. Well, we're up on time here.
Up on time.
Up on time. So I will I'll let you take it out because you brought it in.
Here we go, coming in for a landing. So thank you everyone for joining us. You can watch us every week Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find us on live streaming on YouTube and Twitch. You can also get replays of this on podcasts and also on YouTube and Twitch. Go to the rubberduckdevshow.com, our website, to be able to get that. And you can sign up for our newsletter where we basically send you out the weekly email of what the show covered. You can also check out, is it Ducky Dev? What's the Twitter?
At
Chris
Ducky
hangs
Dev
out
Show.
on at Ducky Dev Show, so you can chat with him here, or as he's mentioned several times, you can join our Discord server. And also the links for those are also on the background of the image that you see here. Next week, we have Lucian joining us along with Seb Wilgosh, talking about monetizing your content. You know, I think there's a thing or two we could learn about this to see how we can monetize the show.
Because guess how much the two of us have made from this stuff?
A big zero.
Well, but that's fine.
Yeah, so, yeah. All right, so thanks everyone for joining us. We will see you next week.
All right, see you guys. Happy programming.
Yep.